Have you achieved everything you set out to achieve? Built the career, raised the family, accumulated the possessions, checked the boxes, done what you were supposed to do, and yet something is missing, something you cannot name, an emptiness you cannot fill, a question that will not go away. Is this all there is? Is this what I worked for? Is this what my life means? And you feel it, the hollowness, the sense that you have climbed the ladder only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall, that you have won the race but forgotten why you were running, that you have everything and nothing, and you wonder, what is the point? What does any of this mean? Tonight, we explore this through Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the Nazi death camps, who lost everything, his family, his work, his freedom, his identity. And in that darkness, in that suffering, he discovered something profound. He discovered that life has meaning, always, in every circumstance, even in the camps, even in suffering, even when everything is taken away. And he discovered that the search for meaning is not a luxury, not something we pursue after our basic needs are met, but the deepest human drive, the will to meaning. And when this will is frustrated, when we cannot find meaning, we fall into what he called the existential vacuum, the emptiness you feel, the question that haunts you. This is not weakness, is the call to meaning, the call to ask, what is life asking of me? Not what do I want from life, but what does life want from me? This is the still point, where we gather in the quiet hours to ask the deepest questions. If you are called to this inquiry, subscribe. Be here as we search for meaning together. Let the world fall away. You are safe here, and the search begins now. Inside one, the success that feels empty. Perhaps you have everything. The career you worked for, the house you dreamed of, the achievements you pursued, the recognition you sought. You did it. You succeeded. By any external measure, you have made it. And yet, you wake up in the middle of the night and feel nothing, or worse, feel empty, feel like you are going through the motions, like you are playing a role, like you are living someone else's life. And you wonder, is this it? Is this what I sacrifice for? Is this what success feels like? And Viktor Frankl would say, you are experiencing the existential vacuum. You have satisfied your material needs, your social needs, your ego needs, but you have not satisfied your deepest need, the need for meaning, the need to know that your life matters, that what you do has purpose, that you are here for a reason, and no amount of success can fill this vacuum. No amount of achievement can answer this question, because meaning is not found in having, is found in being, is found in the answer to a different question. Not what can I get from life, but what is life asking of me? And perhaps you have been asking the wrong question all along. You have been asking, how can I be happy? How can I be successful? How can I get what I want? And life has given you these things, or some of them, and still you are empty, because happiness is not the goal. Success is not the goal. Meaning is the goal, and meaning cannot be pursued, cannot be achieved, can only be discovered, can only be found in response to life's demands. In each moment, in each situation, in each choice, life is asking you something, and until you answer, you will remain empty, will remain haunted by the question, what does this all mean? Insight 2, the busyness that hides the void. Or perhaps you do not feel empty because you do not stop, do not pause, do not allow yourself to feel. You are busy, always working, always doing, always moving. And this busyness feels important, feels productive, feels like you are living. But Frankl would ask, where are you running from? What are you avoiding? What question are you afraid to face? Because busyness is often a defense, a way to not feel the emptiness, a way to not hear the question, a way to not face the existential vacuum. And when you finally stop, when you take a vacation, when you retire, when the external demands quiet, the void appears, the emptiness rushes in, the question becomes deafening, and you realize, I have been running, have been hiding, have been filling every moment with activity to avoid this feeling. This sense that my life lacks meaning, that I am not sure why I'm doing any of this, that I have been busy but not purposeful, active but not alive, moving but not going anywhere that matters. And Frankl saw this, saw how modern life creates perfect conditions for the existential vacuum. We have more comfort than any generation in history. More entertainment, more distraction, more ways to fill time, and less meaning, less purpose, less sense of why we are here, because we have lost the traditional sources of meaning, the religious frameworks, the cultural narratives, the clear roles and purposes, and we have not found new ones. So we fill the void with busyness, with consumption, with achievement, with anything that keeps us from feeling the emptiness, from hearing the question, from facing the fact that we do not know what our life means. And the call comes, in the quiet moments, in the pauses between activities, in the middle of the night, in the space between stimulus and response. The call asks, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Does any of this matter? And you can keep running, can keep staying busy, can keep filling the void, or you can stop, can listen, can face the question, can begin the search for meaning, not out there, not in the next achievement, not in the next distraction, but here, now, in this life, in this moment, in the answer to what life is asking of you. Insight 3, the pleasure that does not satisfy. And perhaps you have pursued pleasure, have sought happiness, have tried to feel good, have indulged, have consumed, have experienced. And perhaps you have found pleasure, found moments of happiness, found temporary satisfaction, but it does not last, does not fulfill, does not answer the deeper hunger, and you find yourself seeking more pleasure, more experiences, more stimulation, like an addict needing higher doses, because pleasure is not enough. Happiness is not enough. They do not provide meaning. And Frankl understood this, understood that Freud was wrong, that humans are not primarily driven by the pleasure principle, not ultimately seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, are seeking meaning. And when we make pleasure the goal, we miss it. When we make happiness the target, it eludes us. Because pleasure and happiness are not goals, are byproducts, are what happens when we find meaning, when we live purposefully, when we respond to life's call. But when we pursue them directly, they disappear. Like trying to grasp water. The harder we squeeze, the more it slips away. And you see this in your own life. The pleasure that felt so important in the moment, that felt so necessary, that you pursued so desperately. And then you had it, and it was empty, was hollow, was not what you needed, because what you needed was not pleasure, was meaning, was purpose, was the sense that your life matters, that you are here for a reason, that you are living in alignment with something larger than your own gratification. And no amount of pleasure can give you this. No amount of happiness can fill this need, because they are the wrong currency, are trying to buy meaning with pleasure, and it does not work. And perhaps you have noticed that the moments that truly mattered in your life were not the moments of greatest pleasure, were the moments of greatest meaning, the times you loved deeply, the times you created something valuable, the times you overcame difficulty, the times you searched something larger than yourself. These moments may not have been pleasant, may have involved pain, sacrifice, struggle, but they meant something. They mattered. They gave your life substance, weight, purpose. And looking back, these are the moments you value, not the pleasures, not the comforts, but the meaningful struggles, the purposeful sacrifices, the times you were truly alive because you were living for something that mattered. Insight 4, the question you cannot answer. And perhaps the emptiness comes in a question that haunts you, a question you cannot answer. What is the meaning of my life? What is my purpose? Why am I here? And you have tried to answer it, have read books, have sought experiences, have looked for signs, have asked others, have searched everywhere, and the answer eludes you, remains just out of reach, and you feel frustrated, feel like you are missing something, like everyone else knows and you do not, like there is an answer you are supposed to find, and you cannot find it. And Frankl would say, you are asking the wrong question. You are asking, what is the meaning of life? As if there is one answer, one purpose, one meaning that applies to everyone, and you are waiting to discover it, to stumble upon it, to have it revealed to you. But this is backwards. Life is not asking to be questioned. Life is questioning you, is asking you in every moment, in every situation, what will you do? How will you respond? What will you make of this? And your answer, your response, is the meaning, not a universal meaning, but your meaning, the meaning of your life. In this moment, in this situation, with these circumstances. The question is not, what do I want from life? The question is, what does life want from me? What is life asking of me right now? In this job, in this relationship, in this difficulty, in this moment. And the meaning is in your response, in how you choose to live, in what you choose to do, in the attitude you take. This is not a meaning you discover once and hold forever. It is a meaning you discover moment by moment, situation by situation, choice by choice, because life's question changes. Life's demands shift, and your response must shift with them, must remain alive, must remain responsive, must remain engaged with what is being asked. And perhaps this feels disappointing. Perhaps you wanted a grand answer, a cosmic purpose, a clear mission statement, something you could hold on to, something that would make everything make sense. But Frankl offers something better, offers freedom, offers responsibility, offers the recognition that you are not waiting to find meaning. You are creating meaning, not arbitrarily, not by deciding what you want it to be, but by responding to what life asks, by discovering what this situation demands, by choosing how you will meet this moment. And in that response, in that choice, meaning emerges, not once, but again and again, as long as you are alive, as long as you are willing to listen to life's question and answer it. Insight 5, the suffering you cannot avoid. And perhaps the emptiness comes with suffering, with pain you cannot escape, with loss you cannot undo, with circumstances you cannot change. And this suffering feels meaningless, feels random, feels like evidence that life has no purpose. Because if life had meaning, why would this happen? Why would you suffer? Why would you lose? Why would life be so hard? And the suffering becomes unbearable not because of the pain itself, but because it seems to have no point, no purpose, no meaning. It is just suffering, just pain, just loss, for nothing. And Frankl would say, this is the ultimate test. This is where meaning is most needed and most possible. Because when everything can be changed, we do not need meaning. We need action. We need to fix the problem. We need to change the situation. But when nothing can be changed, when suffering is unavoidable, when loss is irreversible, we need meaning. We need to choose how we will bear this, how we will respond to this, how we will let this shape us. And in that choice is meaning, is purpose, is the answer to life's question, what will you make of this suffering? How will you carry this pain? Who will you become through this loss? This is not about finding a reason for the suffering, not about believing it happened for a purpose, not about thinking everything happens for a reason. Frankl does not offer that kind of easy consolation, does not say suffering is good, does not say we should seek it, says the opposite, says we should eliminate suffering wherever possible, should change what can be changed, should avoid unnecessary pain. But when suffering is unavoidable, when we have done everything we can and still the pain remains, then we face a choice about how we will suffer, whether we will let it destroy us or transform us, whether we will become bitter or better, whether we will find meaning in it or drown in meaninglessness. And this is perhaps the hardest teaching, the most challenging call, because it asks something of you in your darkest moment, asks you to choose, to respond, to find meaning even here, even in this pain, even in this loss, even in this suffering, not because the suffering is meaningful in itself, but because your response can be, because how you carry this can matter, because who you become through this can serve something larger, can honor something important, can transform pain into purpose. Not easily, not quickly, not without struggle, but possibly, if you are willing, if you choose, if you answer life's question even here. Insight 6, the call to meaning. And so the call comes, not once but constantly, in the emptiness, in the busyness, in the pleasure-seeking, in the unanswerable questions, in the unavoidable suffering. The call asks, what does your life mean? But not as a question you must answer with words, as a question you must answer with your life, with your choices, with your responses, with how you meet each moment, each situation, each demand that life places on you. The call is not asking you to find a meaning, it is asking you to be meaningful, to live meaningfully, to respond meaningfully, to let your life be an answer to life's question. And Viktor Frankl learned this in the most extreme circumstances, in the Nazi death camps, where everything was taken from him, his family murdered, his manuscript destroyed, his freedom stolen, his very name replaced with a number. And there, in that darkness, in that suffering, he faced the ultimate question, does life still have meaning? Can life have meaning even here? Even in this hell? And he discovered that it does, that it can, that even there, stripped of everything, he still had one freedom, the freedom to choose his attitude, the freedom to choose how he would respond, the freedom to choose what this would mean. And this is the call. This is what Frankl offers. Not a method to find meaning, not a technique to feel fulfilled, not a promise that everything will make sense, but a recognition that you have freedom, that you have choice, that you have the ability to respond. That between what happens to you and how you respond is a space. And in that space is your power, your freedom, your humanity, the ability to say, this is what happened. This is what I cannot change, but I can choose what I will make of it. I can choose how I will carry it. I can choose what meaning it will have. And in that choice, in that response, life becomes meaningful. Not because circumstances are good, not because suffering is absent, but because you are present, are engaged, are answering life's question with your life. Now we hold up the mirror, and what you see will not be comfortable. We'll show you how you have been running from the question, how you have been filling the void with substitutes, how you have been seeking meaning in all the wrong places. The mirror shows you the ways you avoid, the ways you distract, the ways you numb, the ways you pretend the question is not there. And Frankl would say, this is not judgment. His recognition is seen clearly, because you cannot find meaning if you are running from the question. cannot answer life's call if you are drowning it out with noise, cannot discover your purpose if you are filling every moment with distractions. The mirror asks you to stop, to look, to see what you have been doing, and why, and what it costs you. Insight 7, the addiction that fills nothing. Look at what you reach for when the emptiness comes, when the question rises, when you feel the void. What do you use to fill it? To numb it? To make it go away? Perhaps it is substances, alcohol, drugs, prescription pills, something to take the edge off, to quiet the mind, to stop the questioning. Or perhaps it is behaviors, shopping, eating, scrolling, binging shows, gaming, pornography, anything to occupy the mind, to fill the time, to avoid the feeling, to not face the emptiness. And Frankl understood this, understood that addiction is not primarily about the substance or behavior, is about the void, is about the existential vacuum, is about trying to fill the emptiness with something, anything, rather than face it, rather than ask what it means, rather than hear life's question. And the addiction works. Temporarily. It fills the void, numbs the pain, quiets the question, but only for a moment. And then the emptiness returns, deeper, more insistent, more painful, and you need more substance, more behavior, more distraction, because the void is still there. The question is still unanswered. The meaning is still missing. And the mirror shows you this pattern, shows you how you reach for the same things again and again, how you know they do not work. No, they do not fill the void. No, they do not answer the question. But you reach for them anyway, because the alternative is harder, is facing the emptiness, is hearing the question, is acknowledging that your life lacks meaning, that you do not know why you are here, that you have been running. And the addiction, the distraction, the numbing allows you to keep running, allows you to not face this, to not feel this, to not acknowledge this. And so you continue, day after day, reaching for substitutes, filling the void with things that do not fill, numbing the pain that returns, running from the question that will not go away. And Frankl would say, the only way out is through, is to stop reaching for substitutes, is to face the emptiness, is to hear the question, is to acknowledge the void, and then to ask, what is this emptiness telling me? What is this question asking? What does my life want from me? Not what can I use to fill this void, but what meaning can I discover in responding to this void, in facing this question, in letting this emptiness call me to something deeper, something real, something that actually fills, not with substances, not with distractions, but with purpose, with meaning, with a life lived in answer to life's question. Insight 8, the achievement that never satisfies. And look at how you chase achievement, how you set goals, how you pursue success, how you measure yourself by accomplishments, by titles, by status, by what you have done, and perhaps you achieve. Perhaps you succeed. Perhaps you reach the goals. Climb the ladder. Get the promotions. Earn the recognition. And it feels good. For a moment. Feels like validation. Like proof that you matter. Like evidence that your life has meaning. But the feeling does not last. The satisfaction fades. The emptiness returns. And you set new goals. Higher goals. Bigger achievements. Because maybe the next one will do it. Maybe the next success will finally prove that your life matters. Will finally fill the void. Will finally answer the question. And Frankl would say, you are confusing achievement with meaning, are trying to prove your worth through success, are seeking validation through accomplishment. But achievement does not create meaning, does not answer life's question, does not fill the existential vacuum, because meaning is not about what you accomplish, is about why you do it, is about what you are serving, is about the purpose behind the achievement. And without that purpose, without that why, achievement is empty, is just another box checked, another goal reached, another success that does not satisfy, because it was never about the achievement, was about the meaning. And you cannot achieve your way to meaning, can only discover meaning in the service of something larger than achievement itself. And the mirror shows you the pattern, shows you how each achievement promises fulfillment, promises to prove you matter, promises to fill the void, and how each achievement fails to deliver, leaves you empty, leaves you seeking the next one, the bigger one, the better one. And you see how you have been on this treadmill, running faster and faster, achieving more and more, and feeling less and less satisfied, because you are running in the wrong direction, are seeking meaning where it cannot be found, in achievement, in success, in external validation, when meaning is internal, is in the why, is in the purpose, is in what you are serving with your work, not what you are gaining from it. And perhaps you see it now. See how the achievements that felt so important feel hollow in retrospect. How the successes you chased do not matter as much as you thought they would. How the goals you reached left you empty. And how the moments that did matter were different. We're not about achievement. We're about meaning. We're about serving something larger, creating something valuable, loving someone deeply, responding to suffering meaningfully. And these moments were not about success. We're about purpose. We're about answering life's question with your life. And this is what fills. What satisfies? What creates the sense that your life matters? Not achievement, but meaning. Insight 9, the comparison that steals meaning. And look at how you compare, how you measure yourself against others, how you look at their lives and judge your own, how you see their success and feel inadequate, or see their struggles and feel superior, how you use others as the metric, as the standard, as the measure of whether your life is enough. And this comparison is constant, is exhausting, is a way of avoiding the real question. Because when you are comparing, you are not asking, what does my life mean? You are asking, how does my life measure up? And these are different questions, lead to different answers, different lives. And Frankl would say, your life is not meant to measure up to anyone else's. It is meant to answer its own unique question. Life is asking you something specific, something that is not being asked of anyone else, something that only you can answer. And when you are comparing, you are not listening to your question, are listening to their answers, are trying to live their purpose, their meaning, their response to life's call. And this will always leave you empty, will always feel inadequate, because it is not your question, not your meaning, not your purpose. You are trying to live someone else's answer, and it does not fit. And the mirror shows you this, shows you how much energy you spend comparing, how much time you spend looking at others' lives, how much emotional energy you invest in measuring yourself against them, and how little time you spend asking your own question, listening to your own call, discovering your own meaning. And you see the cost. See how comparison has stolen your attention, has directed your energy outward when it needed to go inward, has made you focus on their journey when you need to focus on yours, and has left you feeling perpetually inadequate, perpetually behind, perpetually less than, because you are measuring yourself against the wrong standard, against their lives, their purposes, their meanings, when you should be asking, what is my life asking of me? And perhaps you see it now. See how the comparison has been a defense, a way to not face your own question, a way to avoid the hard work of discovering your own meaning, because it is easier to compare than to discover, easier to measure than to create, easier to judge yourself against external standards than to find your own internal purpose. But easier is not better. Easier is not meaningful. Easier is not what your life is asking of you. Your life is asking you to stop comparing, to stop measuring, to stop looking at their answers, and to find your own, to listen to your own question, to discover your own meaning, to live your own purpose, regardless of how it compares, regardless of how it measures, because it is yours, and that is enough. Insight 10, the comfort that becomes prison. And look at how you seek comfort, how you avoid difficulty, how you choose the easy path, the comfortable option, the safe choice. And Frankl would ask, what are you protecting? What are you avoiding? What challenge are you refusing? Because meaning is rarely found in comfort, is found in difficulty, in challenge, in the response to demands that push you beyond your comfort zone, that ask something of you, that require you to grow, to stretch, to become more than you are. And when you choose comfort, you choose to avoid these demands. Choose to stay small. Choose to not answer life's call. And perhaps you have built a very comfortable life, have arranged everything to minimize difficulty, minimize challenge, minimize discomfort, have created routines that are predictable, relationships that are safe, work that is easy, and this feels good, feels safe, feels like you are taking care of yourself. But Frankl would say, you are also taking away the opportunities for meaning, because meaning comes in response to difficulty, in rising to challenges, in answering demands, in doing what is hard because it matters. And when you eliminate all difficulty, you eliminate these opportunities. You make your life comfortable, but also meaningless, because there is nothing being asked of you, nothing calling you to grow, nothing demanding a response. And the mirror shows you this, shows you how your comfort zone has become a prison, how your routines have become ruts, how your safety has become stagnation, and shows you what you are avoiding, what challenges you are refusing, what difficulties you are running from, not because they are impossible, but because they are uncomfortable, because they would require you to stretch, to risk, to be uncertain, to potentially fail. And you see the cost. See how much life is happening outside your comfort zone. How much meaning is waiting in the challenges you are avoiding. How much growth is possible in the difficulties you are refusing. And you see that comfort is not the goal. Safety is not the purpose. Ease is not what makes life meaningful. And perhaps you see now that the most meaningful moments of your life were not comfortable, were challenging, were difficult, were times when you were pushed beyond your limits, when you did not know if you could do it, when you risked, when you struggled, when you grew. And these moments were meaningful precisely because they were difficult, because they demanded something of you, because they required you to become more than you were, to rise to the challenge, to answer the call. And you see that meaning requires difficulty, requires challenge, requires leaving the comfort zone, not for the sake of suffering, but for the sake of growth, for the sake of answering life's demands, for the sake of becoming who you are meant to be. Inside 11, the victimhood that steals agency. And look at how you see yourself as victim, how you focus on what was done to you, what was taken from you, what you did not get, what was not fair. And Frankl, who survived the death camps, who lost everything, who experienced unimaginable suffering, would say, you always have a choice, always have agency, always have the freedom to choose your response, even when you cannot choose your circumstances, even when suffering is unavoidable, even when loss is real. You still have the choice of how you will carry it, how you will respond to it, what meaning you will make of it. And when you see yourself as victim, you give away this power. You give away your agency. You make yourself passive. You say, this happened to me, and now I have no choice. Now I am defined by what was done to me. Now my life is determined by my circumstances. And this feels true, feels justified, feels like you are simply acknowledging reality. But Frankl would say, you are giving away the one thing that cannot be taken from you. Your freedom to choose your attitude. Your freedom to choose your response. Your freedom to choose what this will mean. And in giving this away, you give away your humanity, your dignity, your power to make your life meaningful even in suffering. And the mirror shows you this, shows you how much time you spend in victim stories, how much energy you invest in rehearsing what was done to you, how you use your suffering as identity, as excuse, as reason why your life cannot be meaningful, cannot be purposeful, cannot answer life's call. And you see how this keeps you stuck, keeps you powerless, keeps you focused on the past rather than the present, on what was done rather than what you can do, on circumstances rather than response. And you see the cost. See how victimhood has stolen your agency, has made you passive, has turned you into someone life happens to rather than someone who responds to life, who chooses, who creates meaning even in difficulty. And perhaps you see now that your suffering is real. Your loss is real. What was done to you was real and was not fair. And you also see that you have a choice. That you always have a choice. Not about what happened. Not about the circumstances. Not about the suffering itself. But about what you will do with it. How you will carry it. Who you will become through it. What meaning you will make of it. And this choice is your power, your freedom, your humanity. And when you claim it, when you stop being victim and become responder, when you stop focusing on what was done and start choosing a response, your life becomes meaningful. Not because suffering is good, but because your response to suffering can be dignified, can be growth, can be service, can be meaningful. Insight 12, the mirror's revelation. And so the mirror has shown you everything, has shown you how you fill a void with addictions, how you chase achievements that do not satisfy, how you compare yourself and feel inadequate, how you seek comfort and avoid challenge, how you see yourself as victim and give away your power. And the mirror asks, what will you do with this seeing? Will you look away? Will you deny? Will you defend? Or will you face it? Will you acknowledge it? Will you take responsibility for how you have been running from life's question? For how you have been avoiding the call to meaning? And Frankl would say, this is the moment of choice. This is where change becomes possible. Not in the running, not in the avoiding, not in the substitutes, but in the seeing, in the acknowledgement, in the recognition that you have been seeking meaning in all the wrong places, that you have been trying to fill the void with things that cannot fill it, that you have been running from the question that will not go away. And now you see, now you know, now you can choose differently, can stop running, can face the emptiness, can hear the question, can begin the real search, not for substitutes, not for distractions, not for ways to avoid the question, but for the answer, the real answer, the meaningful answer, the response to what life is asking of you. And this is uncomfortable, is difficult, is easier to go back to the substitutes, to the addictions, to the achievements, to the comparisons, to the comfort, to the victimhood. These are familiar, are known, are ways you have been coping for years, maybe decades, and the mirror is asking you to let them go, to stop using them, to face what they have been protecting you from, the emptiness, the question, the call to meaning. And this is frightening, is uncertain, is stepping into the unknown. But Frankl would say, this is also freedom, is also possibility, is also the beginning of a meaningful life. Because you cannot find meaning while running from the question, cannot discover purpose while filling the void with substitutes, cannot answer life's call while drowning it out with noise. You must stop, must face, must listen, must respond. And the mirror shows you that you can, that you have the power, that you have the freedom, that you have the choice. to stop running, to start responding, to begin living meaningfully. Now we descend into the architecture, into Frankl's logotherapy, into the theoretical framework that explains why meaning matters more than happiness, why purpose is more fundamental than pleasure, why the will to meaning is the deepest human drive. This is not abstract philosophy. It is the structure Frankl built from his experience in the death camps, from watching who survived and who did not, from understanding what makes life worth living even in the darkest circumstances. And this architecture offers something profound, offers a way to understand your life, your suffering, your purpose, offers a framework for finding meaning, not once, but moment by moment, situation by situation, for the rest of your life. Insight 13, the will to meaning. Frankl identified the fundamental human motivation, not the will to pleasure as Freud believed, not the will to power as Adler proposed, but the will to meaning, the drive to find purpose, to discover significance, to know that your life matters. And this is not a secondary need, not something you pursue after basic needs are met. Is primary, is fundamental, is what makes you human. And when this will is frustrated, when you cannot find meaning, you suffer, not just psychologically, existentially. You experience the existential vacuum, the sense that life is empty, pointless, without purpose. And Frankl proved this in the camps, saw that those who survived were not the strongest, not the healthiest, not the most fortunate, were those who had a reason to live. Oh, why that made the how bearable, someone to return to, work to complete, a mission to fulfill. And this why gave them strength, gave them resilience, gave them the ability to endure unimaginable suffering, because they had meaning, had purpose, had something to live for. And those who lost their why, who could not find meaning, who saw no purpose in their suffering, they gave up. They died, not from the conditions, from meaninglessness, from the loss of the will to meaning. And this applies to your life, to your struggles, to your suffering. When you have a why, you can bear almost any how. When you have purpose, you can endure difficulty. When you have meaning, you can face challenges. But when you lose your why, when purpose is absent, when meaning is missing, even small difficulties become unbearable. Even minor challenges feel overwhelming, because it is not the difficulty itself that breaks you. It is the sense that the difficulty is meaningless, that the suffering serves no purpose, that the struggle leads nowhere. And this is what the will to meaning addresses. This is what logotherapy offers. Not a way to eliminate suffering, but a way to make suffering meaningful, to find purpose in difficulty, to discover significance in struggle. And the will to meaning is always there, is always calling, is always asking, what does this mean? What is the purpose? What am I here for? And you can ignore this call, can fill the void with substitutes, can distract yourself with pleasure or achievement or busyness. But the call remains. The will to meaning persists. And until you answer it, until you find purpose, until you discover meaning, you will feel the existential vacuum, will feel the emptiness, will feel that something essential is missing, because it is. Meaning is missing, purpose is absent, and no amount of pleasure or success or distraction can substitute for it. Insight 14, 3 paths to meaning. And Frankl identified 3 ways to discover meaning, 3 paths to purpose, 3 answers to life's question. The first is through creating a work or doing a deed, through what you contribute, what you build, what you leave behind. This is meaning through achievement, but not achievement for its own sake, not success for recognition, but creation that serves something larger, work that contributes value, deeds that make a difference. And this meaning is found in asking, what can I give? What can I create? What can I contribute that has lasting value? The second path is through experiencing something or encountering someone, through love, through beauty, through truth, through the deep appreciation of what is valuable in the world. And this meaning is not about having, not about possessing, is about experiencing, about truly seeing, about deeply connecting. Frankl said that love is the ultimate way to grasp another human being in their uniqueness, to see them not as they are, but as they could be, to help them become their best self. And in this seeing, in this loving, in this experiencing of beauty and truth and connection, meaning is found, not in what you get, but in what you experience, in how deeply you see, in how fully you love. And the third path, the most profound, is through the attitude you take toward unavoidable suffering. When you cannot change the situation, cannot eliminate the pain, cannot undo the loss, you still have one freedom, the freedom to choose your attitude, to choose how you will bear this, to choose what this will mean. And Frankl learned this in the camps. Learned that even there, stripped of everything, he could choose his attitude, could choose to see his suffering as meaningful, could choose to let it make him better rather than bitter, could choose to use it to serve others, to understand suffering, to help those who suffer. And in this choice, in this attitude, meaning was found. Not because suffering is good, but because the response to suffering can be meaningful. And these 3 paths are always available, in every situation, in every moment. You can always ask, what can I create? What can I experience? What attitude can I choose? And in answering these questions, in taking these paths, meaning is discovered, not once, but continuously, because life's question changes, life's demands shift, and your response must shift with them, must remain alive to the possibilities for meaning, in creation, in experience, in attitude. These are not one-time discoveries, are ongoing practices, are ways of living that keep you connected to meaning, to purpose, to what makes life worth living. Insight 15, tragic optimism. And Frankl coined a term for the attitude he discovered in the camps. Tragic optimism, the ability to say yes to life in spite of everything, in spite of suffering, in spite of guilt, in spite of death. This is not naive optimism, not pretending everything is fine, not denying pain, is acknowledging the tragic dimensions of life, the unavoidable suffering, the inescapable guilt, the inevitable death, and still choosing to affirm life, still choosing to find meaning, still choosing to say yes. And this is perhaps Frankl's most challenging teaching, because it asks something of you in your darkest moments, asks you to find meaning in suffering, to transform guilt into change, to let the awareness of death motivate you to live fully. This is not easy, is not comfortable, is not what you want to hear when you are in pain. But Frankl would say, this is what makes the difference between those who are destroyed by suffering and those who are transformed by it, between those who are paralyzed by guilt and those who are motivated to change, between those who are terrified by death and those who are inspired to live. The difference is tragic optimism, the ability to face the tragic and still choose the meaningful. And tragic optimism has three components. First, turning suffering into achievement, not seeking suffering, not glorifying pain, but when suffering is unavoidable, choosing to let it make you deeper, wiser, more compassionate, choosing to use your suffering to understand others who suffer, to help them, to serve them. This is not making suffering good, is making your response to suffering meaningful. Second, deriving from guilt the opportunity to change, not wallowing in guilt, not being paralyzed by it, but using it as motivation, as a call to be better, to do better, to make amends, to grow. And third, deriving from life's transitoriness an incentive to take responsible action, not being paralyzed by death, not wasting time because nothing lasts, but being motivated by death, by the awareness that time is limited, that opportunities pass, that you must act now, must live fully now, must find meaning now, because later may not come. And this is tragic optimism, not denying the tragic, but not being defeated by it, acknowledging suffering, guilt, and death, and still choosing meaning, still choosing purpose, still choosing to say yes to life, not because life is easy, not because suffering is absent, but because meaning is possible, because purpose can be found, because even in the tragic, you have the freedom to choose your response, to choose what it will mean, to choose how it will shape you. And this choice is your power, your freedom, your humanity, and it is always available, in every circumstance, in every moment, even in the darkest times. Insight 16, self-transcendence. And Frankl understood something fundamental about human nature, that we are self-transcending beings, that we are always reaching beyond ourselves, towards something or someone other than ourselves, toward a meaning to fulfill, a person to love, a cause to serve. And this self-transcendence is not optional, is not something we do after we take care of ourselves, is essential to being human, is how we become ourselves, by forgetting ourselves, by transcending ourselves, by reaching towards something larger. And Frankl criticized the focus on self-actualization, on becoming your best self, on fulfilling your potential, not because these are bad goals, but because they cannot be pursued directly, cannot be achieved by focusing on yourself, can only happen as a side effect of self-transcendence, of dedicating yourself to a cause, of loving another person, of serving something larger than yourself. And in this dedication, in this love, in this service, you become yourself. You actualize your potential. You fulfill your purpose. Not by trying to, but by forgetting to try. By losing yourself in something meaningful. And this is perhaps counterintuitive. Perhaps opposite to what you have been taught. You have been told to focus on yourself, to take care of your needs, to pursue your happiness, to find yourself. But Frankl would say, you find yourself by losing yourself. You become yourself by transcending yourself. You fulfill your potential by serving something beyond your potential. And this is not self-sacrifice, not self-denial, is self-discovery, is finding out who you really are by dedicating yourself to something that matters, by loving someone deeply, by serving a cause larger than yourself. And in this transcendence, in this reaching beyond, you discover meaning. You find purpose. You become fully human. And the architecture shows you this. Shows you that meaning is not found by looking inward, by focusing on yourself, by trying to fulfill yourself. Is found by looking outward, by focusing on what life is asking of you, by trying to fulfill life's demands. And this is the shift from what do I want to what does life want from me? From how can I be happy to how can I be meaningful? From what can I get to what can I give? And in this shift, in this self-transcendence, meaning is discovered. Purpose is found. Life becomes worth living, not because you got what you wanted, but because you gave what was needed. Not because you fulfilled yourself, but because you transcended yourself. Insight 17, the defiant power of the human spirit. And Frankl discovered something in the camps that became central to his theory. The defiant power of the human spirit. The ability to resist, to choose, to remain human even in dehumanizing conditions. He saw that even when everything was taken away, when prisoners were stripped of possessions, identity, dignity, they still had one thing that could not be taken: the freedom to choose their attitude, the freedom to choose their response, the freedom to choose what their suffering would mean. And this freedom, this power, this defiance is what makes us human. And Frankl's most famous quote captures this: between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This space is where meaning happens, where purpose is discovered, where humanity is expressed. Not in the stimulus, not in what happens to you, but in the response, in what you choose to do with what happens, in the attitude you take, in the meaning you make. And this space is always there, is always available, even in the worst circumstances, even in the darkest moments. You always have this space, this freedom, this power to choose. And this is not about controlling circumstances, not about making everything go your way, not about eliminating difficulty. It is about controlling your response, about choosing your attitude, about deciding what circumstances will mean. And this is the defiant power, the power to say, you can take everything from me, my possessions, my freedom, my health, my loved ones, but you cannot take my freedom to choose my attitude. my freedom to choose my response, my freedom to choose what this means. And in exercising this freedom, in claiming this power, in defying the circumstances, you remain human. You maintain dignity. You preserve meaning, not because circumstances are good, but because your response is meaningful. And the architecture shows you that you have this power, that you have always had it, that it has never been taken from you. Even when you felt powerless, even when you felt like a victim, even when you felt like circumstances controlled you, you had this space, this freedom, this power to choose your response, and you still have it. In every situation, in every moment, in every difficulty, you can choose your attitude, can choose your response, can choose what this will mean. And in this choice is your freedom, your power, your humanity, your ability to find meaning even in suffering, purpose even in difficulty, significance even in struggle. This is the defiant power of the human spirit, and it is yours, always. Insight 18, the architecture complete. And so the architecture is complete. You understand the will to meaning, the fundamental drive to find purpose. You understand the three paths to meaning, through creation, experience, and attitude. You understand tragic optimism, the ability to say yes to life despite suffering, guilt, and death. You understand self-transcendence, the need to reach beyond yourself to find yourself. And you understand the defiant power of the human spirit, the freedom to choose your response in any circumstance. And these are not separate ideas, are interconnected, are parts of a whole, are the architecture of a meaningful life. And this architecture offers you something, offers you a way to understand your life, your suffering, your purpose, offers you a framework for finding meaning, not by changing your circumstances, not by eliminating difficulty, not by achieving success, but by changing your response, by choosing your attitude, by discovering what life is asking of you, and answering it with your choices, with your actions, with your life. And in this answering, meaning is found. Purpose is discovered. Life becomes worth living, not because it is easy, not because it is pleasant, but because it is meaningful, because you are responding to life's call, because you are living with purpose, because you are exercising your freedom to choose, to create meaning, to transcend yourself, to defy circumstances, to say yes to life, even in difficulty, even in suffering, even in the face of death. This is what the architecture offers. This is what logotherapy teaches. This is what Frankl discovered in the darkest place and brought into the light. For you, for all of us, who seek meaning, who need purpose, who want to know that our lives matter. Now we descend into the shadows, into what Frankl called the tragic triad, the three unavoidable realities of human existence: suffering, guilt, death. These are not problems to be solved, not difficulties to be overcome, not challenges to be conquered, are the givens of life, the conditions of being human, And Frankl would say, you cannot avoid them, cannot escape them, cannot pretend they are not there. But you can choose how you meet them, how you respond to them, what meaning you make of them. And in this choice, in this response, in this meaning making, you transform the tragic into the meaningful, not by denying the tragic, but by facing it, by acknowledging it, by choosing your attitude toward it. This is the work of the shadows, the work of facing what cannot be changed, and finding meaning anyway. Insight 19, the suffering you cannot eliminate. And perhaps you have tried to eliminate suffering, have tried to make your life comfortable, safe, easy, have tried to avoid pain, avoid difficulty, avoid anything that hurts. And this is natural, is human, is what we all want. But Frankl would say, some suffering is unavoidable, is part of being alive, is the price of being human. And when you try to eliminate all suffering, you also eliminate the opportunities for meaning, because meaning is often found in how you respond to unavoidable suffering, in how you carry pain that cannot be eliminated, in how you face difficulty that cannot be avoided. And perhaps you are facing unavoidable suffering now, illness you cannot cure, loss you cannot undo, pain you cannot eliminate, circumstances you cannot change. And this suffering feels meaningless, feels random, feels like evidence that life is cruel, that there is no purpose, that nothing matters. And Frankl would say, the suffering itself has no meaning, is not meaningful in itself, is not good, is not something to seek. But your response to suffering can be meaningful, can be purposeful, can transform the suffering from something that destroys you into something that deepens you, that makes you more compassionate, more understanding, more human. And this is not about finding a reason for the suffering, not about believing it happened for a purpose, not about thinking everything happens for a reason. Frankl does not offer that kind of easy consolation, does not say suffering is good, does not say you should be grateful for it, says the opposite, says you should eliminate suffering wherever possible, should change what can be changed, should avoid unnecessary pain. But when suffering is unavoidable, when you have done everything you can and still the pain remains, then you face a choice about how you will suffer, whether you will let it destroy you or transform you, whether you will become bitter or better, whether you will find meaning in it or drown in meaninglessness. And Frankl learned this in the camps, learned that those who found meaning in their suffering survived, not because the suffering was less, not because they were stronger, but because they chose to let their suffering serve something, chose to use their pain to understand others who suffer, chose to let their difficulty make them more compassionate, more wise, more deeply human. And this choice, this response, this meaning-making is what made the difference between those who were destroyed and those who were transformed, between those who lost their humanity and those who preserved it, between those who gave up and those who endured. And this choice is available to you. In your suffering, in your pain, in your difficulty, you can choose how you will carry it, what it will mean, who you will become through it. Insight 20, the guilt you cannot undo. And perhaps you carry guilt for things you have done, things you have said, things you have failed to do, mistakes you have made, people you have hurt, opportunities you have missed. And this guilt weighs on you, haunts you, makes you feel that you are bad, that you are unworthy, that you cannot be forgiven. And Frankl would say, guilt is real, is part of being human, is unavoidable, because we all make mistakes, all hurt people, all fail to live up to our potential. And this guilt can destroy you, can paralyze you, can make you feel that your life is meaningless, that you are worthless, that nothing you do matters because you have already failed. But Frankl would also say, guilt can be transformed, can be used, can become the motivation for change, for growth, for becoming better. Because guilt is not just about the past, is also about the future, is the recognition that you could have been better, could have done better, could have chosen differently. And this recognition, this awareness, can motivate you, can call you to be better now, to do better now, to choose differently now. And in this way, guilt becomes meaningful. Not because what you did was good, but because your response to guilt can be good, can be growth, can be change, can be the decision to live differently from this moment forward. And this requires facing the guilt, not running from it, not denying it, not making excuses, but acknowledging it, feeling it, taking responsibility for it, and then asking, what does this guilt call me to do? How does it call me to change? What does it ask me to become? And in answering these questions, guilt transforms from something that paralyzes into something that motivates, from something that destroys into something that builds, from evidence of your worthlessness into a call to become worthy. And this is tragic optimism. This is finding meaning in guilt, not by denying the guilt, not by pretending it does not matter, but by using it, by letting it change you, by letting it make you better. And perhaps you see now that the guilt you carry can serve you, can teach you, can motivate you to live differently, to be kinder, to be more careful, to be more conscious of your impact, to make amends where possible, to do better where you cannot undo what was done. And this does not erase the guilt, does not make what you did okay, but it transforms the guilt from something meaningless into something meaningful, from something that destroys into something that creates, from a weight that crushes into a force that propels. And this transformation is your choice, your response, your meaning making, and it is always available. No matter what you have done, no matter how much you have failed, you can choose to let guilt motivate change, can choose to become better, can choose to make your future different from your past. Insight 21, the death you cannot escape. And perhaps you fear death. Fear the end. Fear the loss of everything. Fear that your life will not matter, that you will be forgotten, that everything you have done will be meaningless. And this fear is natural, is human, is what we all feel when we face our mortality. But Frankl would say, death is not the enemy of meaning, is the condition of meaning. Because if life were infinite, nothing would be urgent. Nothing would matter. Nothing would need to be done now. You could always do it later, could always change later, could always become who you want to be later. But death makes life finite, makes time limited, makes every moment count. And this is what gives life meaning. And Frankl would say, death does not make life meaningless, makes life meaningful, because death creates urgency, creates the need to act now, to live now, to become who you are meant to be now, because later may not come, because time is running out, because this moment is all you have. And this awareness, this consciousness of death is not morbid, is not depressing, is liberating, is motivating, is what calls you to live fully, to love deeply, to create meaningfully, to not waste time, to not postpone life, to not wait for someday, because someday may never come, and all you have is now. And perhaps you are at the age where death is no longer abstract, where you have lost people, where you see your own mortality, where you feel time running out. And this can be terrifying, can make you feel that nothing matters, that everything is futile, that there is no point. But Frankl would say, this is the moment. This is when meaning becomes most important, most urgent, most necessary, because you see that time is limited, that opportunities pass, that you cannot wait. And this seeing, this awareness can motivate you, can call you to live differently, to live more fully, to live more meaningfully, to stop wasting time on what does not matter, to focus on what does, to create, to love, to serve, to become who you are meant to be before it is too late. And this is not about denying death, not about pretending you will live forever, not about avoiding the reality of mortality. It is about using death, about letting death motivate you, about letting the awareness of finitude create urgency, create meaning, create the recognition that this moment matters, that this day matters, that this life matters, not because it is infinite, but because it is finite, not because you have all the time in the world, but because you do not. And this finitude, this limitation, this mortality is what makes your choices matter, what makes your actions significant, what makes your life meaningful, because you are choosing, are acting, are living in the face of death, in the awareness of finitude, in the recognition that this is all you have. Insight 22, the tragic triad together. And so you face all three. Suffering you cannot eliminate. Guilt you cannot undo. Death you cannot escape. This is the tragic triad. The unavoidable realities of human existence. And Frankl would say, this is not depressing, is not hopeless, is not evidence that life is meaningless, is the opposite, is the condition of meaning, because meaning is found in how you respond to the tragic, in how you face what cannot be changed, in how you choose your attitude toward what is unavoidable. And this is where your freedom lies, not in changing circumstances, not in eliminating the tragic, but in choosing your response, in choosing your attitude, in choosing what the tragic will mean. And perhaps you see now that the tragic triad is not your enemy, is your teacher, is what calls you to find meaning, to choose purpose, to live fully, because suffering calls you to compassion, to depth, to understanding. Guilt calls you to change, to growth, to becoming better. Death calls you to urgency, to action, to living now. And together, these three create the conditions for a meaningful life. Not a comfortable life, not an easy life, not a life without pain, but a meaningful life, a purposeful life, a life that matters, because you are responding to the tragic, are facing what cannot be changed, are choosing meaning in the face of meaninglessness, are saying yes to life in spite of everything. And this is tragic optimism. This is what Frankl discovered in the camps. This is what he offers you. Not a way to avoid the tragic. Not a promise that life will be easy. Not a guarantee that suffering will end. But a way to face the tragic. To meet it. To respond to it. To find meaning in it. And this way is always available. In every circumstance. In every moment. In every difficulty. You can choose your attitude. Can choose your response. Can choose what the tragic will mean. And in this choice is your freedom. Your power. Your humanity. Your ability to live meaningfully even in the face of suffering, guilt, and death. This is the work of the shadows. This is the descent into the tragic. And this is where meaning is found. And now we arrive at integration, at the place where understanding becomes practice, where theory becomes life, where Frankl's insights become your daily choices. This is not about finding one meaning and holding it forever, not about discovering your purpose once and being done. It is about living meaningfully, moment by moment, situation by situation, responding to life's questions as they arise. And this is harder than finding a meaning, is more demanding, is more alive, because life's questions change, life's demands shift, and you must remain responsive, must remain awake, must remain engaged with what life is asking of you. Right now, in this moment, in this situation, with these circumstances, this is the integration. This is living with meaning. This is answering life's call with your life. Insight 25, the daily practice of meaning. And meaning is not found once, is discovered daily, in small choices, in ordinary moments, in how you respond to what life presents. Frankl would say, do not ask what you expect from life. Ask what life expects from you. And this question must be asked every day, every morning when you wake. What does today ask of me? What does this situation demand? What can I create today? What can I experience? What attitude can I choose? And in answering these questions, in making these choices, meaning emerges. Not grand, not dramatic, but real, present, alive. And perhaps you wake and the day feels meaningless, feels routine, feels like nothing important will happen. And Frankl would say, you are not looking closely enough, are not asking the right question, because every day presents opportunities for meaning. In your work, no matter how mundane, in your relationships, no matter how familiar. In your challenges, no matter how small. The question is not, is this day important enough? The question is, how will I make this day meaningful? What will I create? What will I experience? What attitude will I choose? And in asking this, in responding to this, the day becomes meaningful. Not because circumstances changed, but because you changed. Because you chose to see the opportunities, to respond to the demands, to create meaning where you are. And this is the daily practice. Not waiting for meaning to appear, not hoping for purpose to reveal itself, but actively discovering it. In each moment, in each choice, in each response, you are at work. What does this work ask of you? Not just the tasks, but the meaning. How can this work serve something larger? How can it contribute value? How can it express your values? You are with family. What does this relationship ask of you? Not just the obligations, but the love. How can you truly see them? How can you help them become their best selves? How can you experience the depth of connection? You face difficulty. What does this challenge ask of you? Not just to endure, but to grow. How can this make you deeper, wiser, more compassionate? How can you use this to serve others who struggle? And this daily practice transforms life, not by changing circumstances, but by changing how you meet circumstances, by choosing to see every moment as an opportunity for meaning, every situation as a question from life, every challenge as a call to respond. And in this seeing, in this responding, life becomes meaningful. Not someday, not when circumstances are right, but now, today, in this ordinary moment, in this mundane task, in this familiar relationship, in this small challenge. Meaning is here, waiting to be discovered, waiting for your response. And the practice is simple. Wake. Ask, what does today ask of me? Live. Respond to what life presents. Sleep, knowing you answered. And wake again, to ask again, to respond again, to live meaningfully again. Insight 26, creating through your work. And one path to meaning is through what you create, through your work. And Frankl would say, this is not about what you do, it is about why you do it. Not about your job title, but about your purpose. Not about success, but about contribution. And every work, no matter how humble, can be meaningful if it serves something larger than yourself, if it contributes value, if it expresses what matters to you. The question is not, is my work important enough? The question is, how can I make my work meaningful? How can I serve through it? How can I contribute through it? How can I express my values through it? And perhaps you feel your work is meaningless, is just a job, is just paying bills, is not your calling. And Frankl would say, you are waiting for the wrong thing, or waiting for work to give you meaning, when you should be giving meaning to work, or waiting to find meaningful work, when you should be making your work meaningful. And this is done not by changing jobs, but by changing perspective, by asking, What does this work serve? Who does it help? What value does it create? How does it contribute to something larger? And when you see this, when you connect your work to something beyond yourself, it becomes meaningful. Not because the tasks changed, but because you see them differently. See them as service, as contribution, as expression of what matters. And if you cannot find meaning in your current work, Frankl would say, then create something else. Not necessarily a new job, but a project, a contribution, something you build that serves something larger, something that expresses your values, something that will outlast you. This does not have to be grand, does not have to be recognized, can be small, can be private, can be something only you and a few others know about. But it must be real, must be valuable, must serve something beyond yourself. And in creating this, in building this, in contributing this, meaning is found. Not in the recognition, not in the success, but in the creating itself, in the service, in the contribution, in knowing that you are building something that matters, that will help someone, that expresses what you value. That is your answer to life's question, what can you create? And this creating is not just about products, it is about impact, it is about the difference you make in your workplace, in your community, in your relationships. What are you building? What are you contributing? What will remain after you are gone? Not monuments, not achievements, but impact. Lives touched, people helped, value created. And this is the meaning in creating. Not what you get, but what you give. Not what you achieve, but what you contribute. Not what you build for yourself, but what you build for others, for something larger, for something that matters. And in this creating, in this contributing, in this building, you answer life's question. You make your life meaningful through what you create. Insight 27, experiencing through love and beauty. And the second path to meaning is through what you experience. Through love, through beauty, through truth, through deep connection with what is valuable in the world. And Frankl understood that this is not about having, not about possessing, it is about experiencing, about truly seeing, about deeply connecting. And this requires presence, requires attention, requires the willingness to be moved, to be touched, to be changed by what you experience. And in this experiencing, meaning is found, not in what you get, but in what you receive, not in what you possess, but in what you witness, not in what you control, but in what you allow to touch you. And perhaps you have stopped experiencing, have become numb, have stopped seeing beauty, have stopped feeling deeply, have protected yourself from being moved. And Frankl would say, you have also protected yourself from meaning, because meaning comes through openness, through vulnerability, through the willingness to be affected, to be touched, to be changed. And this is frightening, is risky, is opening yourself to pain as well as joy, but is also the only way to truly live, to truly experience, to truly find meaning in what life offers, not in what you achieve, but in what you witness, what you experience, what touches you, what moves you, what connects you to something larger than yourself. And love is the deepest form of this experiencing. Not romantic love only, but the capacity to truly see another person, to see them in their uniqueness, to see not just who they are, but who they could be, to help them become their best self. And Frankl said, this is how we grasp another human being in their essence. Through love, through truly seeing them. And in this seeing, in this loving, meaning is found, not in being loved, but in loving, not in being seen, but in seeing, not in what you get from the relationship, but in what you give, in how deeply you see, in how fully you love, in how completely you help them become who they are meant to be. And this is meaning. This is purpose. This is answering life's question through love. And beauty is another form of this experiencing. The capacity to be moved by what is beautiful in nature, in art, in music, in truth, to stop, to notice, to let it touch you, to let it remind you that there is something larger than your problems, something more enduring than your struggles, something more significant than your achievements. And in this experiencing of beauty, meaning is found, not in creating beauty, but in witnessing it, not in possessing it, but in being moved by it, not in understanding it, but in allowing it to touch you, to change you, to remind you that life is more than survival, more than success, more than solving problems, is also about experiencing what is valuable, what is beautiful, what is true. And in this experiencing, life becomes meaningful, not through what you do, but through what you allow yourself to receive, to witness, to be moved by. Insight 28, choosing your attitude in suffering. And the third path to meaning, the most profound, is through the attitude you choose toward unavoidable suffering. And Frankl learned this in the camps. Learned that when everything is taken away, when you cannot change circumstances, when suffering is unavoidable, you still have one freedom. The freedom to choose your attitude, to choose how you will bear this, to choose what this will mean. And this is not about making suffering good, not about pretending it is not painful, not about denying the difficulty. It is about choosing your response, choosing who you will become through this, choosing what meaning you will make of this. And you face suffering, perhaps not the extreme suffering of the camps, but real suffering nonetheless. Loss, illness, disappointment, failure, betrayal, aging, death. And you have a choice, not about the suffering itself, but about your response to it. Will you let it make you bitter or better? Will you let it close you or open you? Will you let it destroy you or transform you? And this choice is your power, your freedom, your humanity, the one thing that cannot be taken from you, even in the worst circumstances, even in the darkest moments. You can choose your attitude, can choose your response, can choose what this will mean. And Frankl would say, do not seek suffering. Do not glorify pain. Eliminate suffering wherever possible. Change what can be changed. Avoid unnecessary pain. But when suffering is unavoidable, when you have done everything you can and still the pain remains, then choose your attitude. Choose to let it make you deeper, wiser, more compassionate. Choose to use your suffering to understand others who suffer, to help them, to serve them. Choose to let your pain become your purpose, your loss become your mission, your struggle become your strength. Not because suffering is good, but because your response to suffering can be meaningful, can be dignified, can be transformative, can serve something larger than your pain. And this is perhaps the hardest practice, the most challenging integration, because it asks something of you in your darkest moments, asks you to choose, to respond, to find meaning even here, even in this pain, even in this loss, even in this suffering. And you may not want to, may want to be a victim, may want to give up, may want to let the suffering define you, destroy you. And Frankl would say, this is your choice. This is your freedom. You can choose victimhood, can choose bitterness, can choose to let suffering destroy you. Or you can choose meaning, can choose growth, can choose to let suffering transform you. And this choice, this freedom, this power is what makes you human, is what gives you dignity, is what allows you to find meaning even in the darkest circumstances, even in unavoidable suffering, even in the face of death. Insight 29, living with tragic optimism. And so you practice tragic optimism, the ability to say yes to life in spite of everything, in spite of suffering, in spite of guilt, in spite of death. This is not naive optimism, not pretending everything is fine, not denying pain, is acknowledging the tragic dimensions of life, the unavoidable suffering, the inescapable guilt, the inevitable death, and still choosing to affirm life, still choosing to find meaning, still choosing to say yes, not because life is easy, not because suffering is absent, but because meaning is possible, because purpose can be found, because even in the tragic, you have the freedom to choose your response. And you practice this by turning suffering into achievement, not seeking suffering, but when it comes, choosing to let it make you better, deeper, wiser, more compassionate, choosing to use your suffering to help others who suffer, to understand them, to serve them, to let your pain become your purpose. And you practice this by deriving from guilt the opportunity to change, not wallowing in guilt, not being paralyzed by it, but using it as motivation, as a call to be better, to do better, to make amends, to grow, to become who you are meant to be. And you practice this by deriving from life's transitoriness an incentive to take responsible action, not being paralyzed by death, not wasting time because nothing lasts, but being motivated by death, by the awareness that time is limited, that opportunities pass, that you must act now, must live fully now, must find meaning now, because later may not come. And this tragic optimism is not easy, is not comfortable, is not what you want to practice when you are in pain, when you are struggling, when you are suffering. But Frankl would say, This is what makes the difference between those who are destroyed by life and those who are transformed by it, between those who give up and those who grow, between those who become bitter and those who become better. The difference is tragic optimism, the choice to say yes to life, even in suffering, even in guilt, even in the face of death. Not because it is easy, but because it is meaningful, because it is dignified, because it is human, because it is your answer to life's question, your response to life's demands, your way of making your life meaningful, even in the tragic, even in the difficult, even in the painful. Insight 30, answering life's question. And so the integration is complete. You understand that meaning is not found once, is discovered daily, in small choices, in ordinary moments. You understand that you create meaning through your work, through what you contribute, what you build, what you give. You understand that you experience meaning through love and beauty, through truly seeing, deeply connecting, being moved. You understand that you choose meaning through your attitude towards suffering, through how you respond, who you become, what you make of it. And you understand that you practice tragic optimism, saying yes to life, even in suffering, even in guilt, even in the face of death. And now you must live this, must practice this, must integrate this into your daily life, not as theory, not as philosophy, but as practice, as choice, as response, every day, every moment, every situation. Life is asking you something. What does this moment ask of me? What does this situation demand? What can I create? What can I experience? What attitude can I choose? And your answer, your response, your choice is your meaning, is your purpose, is your life lived meaningfully. Not someday, not when circumstances are right, but now, today, in this moment, in this situation, with these circumstances. And Frankl would say, this is not easy, is not comfortable, is not what you expected when you started searching for meaning. You thought you would find an answer, a purpose, a mission statement, something you could hold on to, something that would make everything make sense. But what you found is something better, something more alive, something more real. You found that meaning is not something you find, is something you create, not arbitrarily, not by deciding what you want it to be, but by responding to what life asks, by discovering what this situation demands, by choosing how you will meet this moment. And in that response, in that choice, meaning emerges, not once, but again and again, as long as you are alive, as long as you are willing to listen to life's question and answer it. And this is the gift Frankl offers, not a method to find meaning, not a technique to feel fulfilled, not a promise that everything will make sense, but a recognition that you have freedom, that you have choice, that you have the ability to respond. That between what happens to you and how you respond is a space. And in that space is your power, your freedom, your humanity, the ability to say, this is what happened. This is what I cannot change, but I can choose what I will make of it. I can choose how I will carry it. I can choose what meaning it will have. And in that choice, in that response, life becomes meaningful. Not because circumstances are good, not because suffering is absent, but because you are present, are engaged, are answering life's question with your life. And this is enough. This is meaning. This is purpose. This is a life worth living. Not because it is easy, not because it is pleasant, but because it is meaningful, because you are responding, because you are choosing, because you are living with purpose, with meaning, with the recognition that your life matters, not because of what you achieve, not because of what you have, but because of how you respond, how you choose, how you live. This is the integration. This is living meaningfully. This is answering life's call with your life. The journey is complete. You've traveled far tonight, through shadows, through light, through depths most never see. Your mind has done its work. You can rest now. This is the still point, your anchor in the sea of thought, a place you can always return to whenever the world becomes too loud. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting this space, for trusting yourself. Sleep well. Good night.